Hi, sixth graders. This is Mrs. Guido, and I will be reading Chapter 3, Section 2 with you, The First Empires. Some key ideas for this reading. Sargon formed the world's first empire by conquering the Sumerian city-states. In our working class, I know that you learned about how the city-states started to decline due to several reasons. And that's when Sargon was then able to form that first empire. And another key idea, the Babylonian Emperor Hammurabi created an important legal code. Some key terms as we read are empire, ally, cultural trait, Hammurabi's code, and rule of law. As the independent city states of Sumer grew in size and power and wealth, they often came into conflict. For hundreds of years, the city states fought among themselves. In time, strong rulers conquered the whole region, creating the world's first empires. An empire is a state containing several countries or territories. The conquest of Sumer. As Sumerian kings struggled for power, fighting between city states was common. Years of frequent fighting made Sumerian city-states grow weaker. This eventually led to the conquest of Sumer. Conflict in Sumer. The fighting between the city-states of Umma and Lagash is one example of the widespread conflict in Sumer. For many years, Umma and Lagash and their allies fought to control a fertile region on their shared border. An ally is an independent state that works with other states to achieve a shared military or political goal. Around 2450 BC, armies from Umma and Lagash met in a major battle. Soldiers used bronze axes and long spears with sharp metal points. Thousands of troops died in the fighting before Lagash won the battle. To celebrate their victory, Lagash soldiers looted and burned Umma. They captured prisoners from Umma to be sold as slaves. It took years for Umma to recover from the defeat. Around 2375 BC, a powerful king of Umma finally defeated Lagash and several other Sumerian city-states, but his rule soon came to an end. Sargon builds an empire. While the Sumerian city-states struggled for power, a new society arose in Mesopotamia. The Akkadian people lived in the northwest of Sumer, but they were not related to Sumerians. Akkadians spoke a different language and had different customs. During the during the 2300s BC, an Akkadian man named Sargon became king of the Sumerian city-state of Kish. He changed the language used by the government to Akkadian. Under Sargon's rule, the Akkadian army conquered other Mesopotamian city-states. He placed loyal Akkadians in important government and religious positions. For example, he chose his daughter to be a high priestess in the city-state of Ur. These moves helped him solidify his power. Then Sargon united much of Mesopotamia under his rule, creating the world's first empire, the Akkadian Empire. Akkadian culture. The Akkadians and Sumerians shared some cultural traits. Remember, a cultural trait is an idea or way of doing things that is common in a certain culture. For example, the Akkadians and Sumerians had similar religious practices, and both societies used the cuneiform system of writing. As Sargon's troops moved throughout the Fertile Crescent, they brought their cultural traits with them. Furthermore, Akkadians began to trade with people as far away as the Indus Valley in modern-day Pakistan. As a result, Akkadian and Sumerian ways of doing things spread throughout the region. The Akkadian Empire ends. To control such a large empire, Sargon appointed local rulers. Each local ruler served as king of the land he oversaw. Sargon was able to control the Akkadian Empire for more than 50 years. On the bottom of this page, you see a visual of some photographs of artifacts, and it says War in Sumer. War was common in Sumer as rival city-states fought for power and territory. The background image shows a carving of soldiers made to celebrate the victory of Lagash over Umma around 2450 BC. The ceremonial gold dagger at left was buried with a Sumerian queen around 2500 BC. At the top of this page, we see empires rise and fall. Over time, powerful rulers built mighty empires in the Fertile Crescent, but each empire eventually collapsed as invading peoples battled to control the region's rich city-states. This pattern of empires rising and falling continued over hundreds of years. Over here, we see the carving of an Akkadian military victory, and over here we see a statue from Lagash. After Sargon's death in 2279 BC, the Akkadian Empire faced a growing number of rebellions and invasions. Within 100 years, the empire had collapsed. Warriors from the Zagros Mountains east of the Tigris River eventually took control of the region. Around 2100 BC, Sumer was united again, this time by Ur-Nammu, the ruler of Ur. As you read in section 1, Ur-Nammu issued the world's first known law code. Ur prospered for about 100 years under Ur-Nammu and later rulers. Then, an uprising of rebels from the east managed to destroy Ur and capture its ruler. This ended Ur's rule over Sumer. Once again, the Sumerian city-states fought over power. The Babylonian Empire. The Babylonian Empire. After the destruction of Ur, many groups invaded Sumer. One of them, the Amorites, came from the northern Mesopotamia. The Amorites took control of several Sumerian cities, including Babylon. At the time, Babylon was a small, unimportant city on the Euphrates River near present-day Baghdad, Iraq. But under a king named Hammurabi, Babylon became the center of a new Mesopotamian empire. The empire forms. Excuse me. Around 1792 BC, Hammurabi became king of Babylon. For 30 years, he solidified his power and built up his army. Then he launched a series of attacks against other Mesopotamian city-states. Within a few years, he had united southern Mesopotamia into what we now call the Old Babylonian Empire, or Babylonia. Hammurabi was an excellent military leader, and he was also a skilled ruler. Like Sargon, after Hammurabi built his empire, he had to create a government strong enough to hold it together. He sent his own governors, tax collectors, and judges to rule distant cities. He spread out his well-trained troops over the empire. Hammurabi also oversaw a number of public building projects that encouraged the growth of trade. Hammurabi's Code. Today, Hammurabi is best remembered for his creation of Hammurabi's Code, a set of laws that govern life in the Babylonian Empire. Many of these laws had existed since Sumerian times, but Hammurabi wanted to make sure everyone in Babylonia knew the laws they were expected to live by. In the introduction to his code, Hammurabi wrote that he wanted to bring about the rule of righteousness in the land, to destroy the wicked and evildoers, so that the strong should not harm the weak, so that I should further the well-being of mankind. Hammurabi's code includes nearly 300 laws. Some of these laws have to do with crimes such as robbery and murder. Hammurabi's code sets out specific punishments for these crimes. For example, one law reads, "If a man put out the eye of another man, his eye shall be put out." Although some of the punishments may sound cruel by modern standards, they did encourage social order. You'll see on the next page it takes a closer look at Hammurabi's code and gives some examples of the laws that were part of this code of law. Other laws in Hammurabi's code dealt with private matters such as business contracts, taxes, marriage, and divorce. Many of these laws treated various groups of people differently. For example, the penalty for harming someone of the same rank in society was greater than harming someone of lower rank, such as a slave. Hammurabi's code was more detailed than the Ur-Nammu law code. In fact, it was the first major attempt to organize and write down all the laws that governed a society. Govern means to control or strongly influence. It established and enforced the rule of law, or the idea that all members of society, even the rich and powerful, must obey the law. This idea is a key part of modern democratic principles. Daily life in Babylonia. Hammurabi's code and other Babylonian writings give historians a great deal of information about life in Babylonia. Most people's lives revolved around agriculture. Food had to be grown and distributed. Irrigation canals had to be kept clear of silt. Wool had to be collected and woven into textiles or cloth. In the cities, some people bought and sold goods. They used new technologies to make tools, weapons, pottery, perfumes, and medicines. Babylonian artists were known for their stone and bronze sculptures. They also used gold and precious stones to make jewelry. The legacy of Sumer. Sumerian culture stayed alive in Babylonia, just as it had in the Akkadian Empire under Sargon. But despite Hammurabi's efforts to build a strong government, the Babylonian Empire eventually collapsed after his death in 1750 BC. In the years that followed, the once great civilization of Sumer slowly faded away. Sumer's influence, however, did not disappear. The many peoples who had come into contact with Sumerian civilizations learned from it. They brought ideas and customs from Sumer back to their homelands. In this way, Sumerian advances in technology, farming, writing, learning, and the law lived on.